Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone had a good lunch and loaded up on coffee. We have a really exciting rest of the day planned for you as well. My name is Ishit Vachrajani. I lead global enterprise strategy for AWS. And I'm joined by three amazing panelists today from three different industries. They are not only from three different industries, they also come from three different functions. So we are going to get a really cool view of how they are leading AI from different companies, different industries, and different roles. So really excited about this panel. And the other fun fact here is I'm noticing the names here. It's 4 A's. We have AWS, we have AstraZeneca, Adobe, and Allianz. So this is like 4 aces right here. I'll let them introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about how their role fits into the AI strategy for their company. Anna, please kick us off.
Yes, hello, my name is Anna Berg-Asberg, and I'm Vice President for R&D IT. So it's basically research and development for AstraZeneca. It's a biopharmaceutical company with ambition to eliminate cancer as a cause of death and help the people with chronic diseases or rare diseases. AI fits in that we want to accelerate the medicines to the patients and help them faster and gain more insights along the way so we can make the right decisions.
Thank you, Anna. Really excited to have you here. Rocket.
As Ishit said, everyone calls me Rocket. This is my tag name. It's also my last name. I'm at Adobe. I come from an interesting background, potentially. Software engineer, and then I went to law school to become a copyright attorney. So at Adobe, I'm essentially the legal CTO. And at Adobe, I'm responsible for two things as related to this topic: the internal enablement of AI for productivity internally, but also supporting our products, enabling our products that go out into the marketplace. Super excited to be here.
Thank you, Rocket. Axel?
Thank you. My name is Axel Schell. I'm the CTO of Allianz Technology, and Allianz Technology is the internal service provider of Allianz Financial Services company. So whenever we do something, we do IT for our business units, and everything is kind of globalized in Allianz Technology. So when I don't do my CTO stuff, I think a lot about AI, what is coming next, what we can do to improve, and events like that are always mind-boggling, give me new ideas how we can improve.
Great, and that's a great place to start. I know many of the executives in the room have a ton of ideas and use cases where potentially they can apply AI. Axel, I want to start with you. I know Allianz is doing a lot of things with AWS on code modernization as well as document management. Why did you prioritize those use cases? And if you can also share with us, how did you go about funding them and staffing them?
Yes. So we had a couple of criteria when we looked at which use cases are the most relevant one. One was, for example, for us, how easy can we scale a use case? The other one was really very much value-driven. So we looked into the various use cases, what kind of value can we create with the use case? And then, of course, a kind of a viability, and that is a kind of speed choice. So speed is an active choice. And we said that everything that takes longer than a certain amount of time, we don't want to go for that. We want to learn very quickly and go for that. So when it comes to funding, we created a kind of mini competition where use cases can actually apply for certain funding. We did very crucial time boxing, so there is no possibility to, work half a year or something on a use case. We really have to be very quick. And then last but not least, we, let's say, divided the world more or less in two worlds, where we said there's something that is more customer-facing, business-related stuff, and then there's something that is more related to the internal IT function. So we call it AI for IT, because those are different models, different use cases. So more or less, we think in those two worlds.
Great. I loved what you said about speed. And we often talk about this at Amazon, that speed is a choice. It's not preordained. We can all decide to actually move fast. So great way to think about this. Rocket, I want to come to you, but before I ask you to tell us about how Adobe is uniquely managing the legal framework when it comes to AI, I'm really curious about your background. You're an engineer, but then you decided to go to the law school. That's fascinating. Tell us a little bit about how that happened.
Yeah, super odd reason. So I began with GE Aerospace, which then was acquired by Martin Marietta. But I'm old enough. Hopefully, I don't look that old. When they printed out the org book, and when I was looking for my name, I was smack in the middle on page 200. I was like, how long is it going to take me to get further in this org book? So I wound up just cold calling everyone on page one. I didn't call Jack Welch, thank God. But the one person who picked up the phone was an IP attorney. And I said, how do I get in the first 5 pages? And he said, go to law school. I said, but I'm an engineer. I don't really do English. He's like, go to law school. You get in the first 5 pages. And that's how I got to law school.
That's fantastic. Always take your shots.
Yes.
That's amazing. Tell us more about how Adobe is uniquely managing the legal framework when it comes to AI implementation.
Yeah, at Adobe, it was pretty interesting because we were on the forefront. Our first model, Firefly, for generative imaging. And, things were even more unknown then. We still have a lot of unknowns now, but things were even more unknown then, especially from a copyright law perspective. So we took a very early decision. We will only train on licensed content. And what that then tumbleweeded into was like, well, wait a second. That means that our model is commercially safe, and we can indemnify this now. And it also, the creative community, which is very important to us, also tremendous amount of goodwill in that regard. So it was just a way of navigating the unknown, conservative position, goodwill, do the right thing.
One of the things, and this is not just for AI, I think a lot of time in any technology initiatives, I was a CTO, and the question is, well, when should you actually bring legal in? What's your advice?
Please, as early as possible. Legal's an enabler for speed. We actually not a speed bump at all. And just because if you get the legal reviews underway, that you can really get to the use cases and trying to see what work and actually bring that impact to your business.
It's not a speed bump. As long as you really engaged legal early, it's not a speed bump, it's an accelerator.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Great, excellent. Anything to share on engaging legal from your experience?
I think we made the same conclusions. If you do it in the right way, this will help you to come to your success. If you do it in the wrong way, it can take a long time.
Yeah, and knowing early, right, that are you going down the wrong path, and building that partnership is super critical. And I want to come to you. AstraZeneca is doing some great things with drug research. Tell us about how you are creating value today with AI.
Yeah, so one of the examples is when Gen AI came out, we started to gather the most senior leaders in research and development, and we trained them a little bit. We had a little bit boot camp. We had a little bit fun with them, learned them prompt engineering, and now they understood what technology can do. And then we prioritized the top problems to go after that was suitable. And maybe they were not the top, but it was the first problems to go after. And one of them was to have a research assistant that could help us with literature search and really dive into our previous experiments and our data, as well as literature published in the external and public spaces, and have it trustable come back in a reasoned way. So we start building this research assistant as the first one, and a couple of months in, we have a run table. We are going to cite an engagement session, and we have a run table with a young scientist in the labs. And one of them, Holly, I remember it, I expected her to come with science questions. She put me on the spot and she said, I'm one of the pilot users, one of 40 pilot users, and I have this amazing tool that saves me weeks, probably months of my time every time I have to do a literature search. Why can't my peers using this tool? And I tried to explain, it's a pilot, it's going to take 9 months to build it ready. And then just a couple of days later, we demo and we bring the most senior leaders up on the AI strategy, and we demo the research assistant, and we tell them about Holly's comment. And they're like, you have to scale now. I'm like, no, this is a pilot. We have 40 users. It's not scalable right now. And they know you have to scale. Luckily, we had engaged legal early. And we actually could, within a week, 1 or 2 weeks, we could scale it to the main countries where we already had engaged with legal and the work councils and the unions, etc. And overnight, we did silent launch. Overnight, we had thousands of users starting using this tool. So it was a great success. It was easy to use. It solved a real problem for scientists. It democratized the knowledge. And that was really our first big success.
So you had a viral hit. That's amazing. Now, when you look at the experiments that you are running, I'm curious to know within each of your organizations, How do you decide what experiments to double down on? So in this case, you actually had a pilot user who immediately saw the value and said, well, this will actually save me so much time and go do it. How do you actually cut the bait on those experiments that don't work? So what's your mental model in deciding where to continue and where to cut the bait on?
So first of all, we did prioritize the key problems. We took it to the top and we prioritized what are the key problems to go after. And there were a handful. And then we went after those, and some of them, like Research Assistant, really was successful directly. So we doubled down and added new features. It can reason about new things. So that's the success one. Other problems we couldn't solve at the first go. And then we had to stop the technology very quickly, and we need to solve it. The problem is still there. We just need to solve it in a different way. It's no point of keep going at something that doesn't work. So you need to have that agile decision-making of, this doesn't work, we need to stop it, we need to go about it another way. And you need to make sure that the organization knows that's not a failure, that's just step one, now we go to step two.
Great, and the thing that you're also highlighting here is that this is a team sport, right?
Yeah.
An initiative like this cannot just be run out of one function. Axel, I want to come to you. You're using Amazon Q for code modernization. How do you get developers along? We heard some amazing announcement earlier in the morning from Matt. Tell us about how did you get developers to actually adopt, try, and what kind of questions they asked, and how did you address that?
I think a key fundamental point is that we started to believe that using Gen AI is not just rolling out a tool. I think many organizations make the mistake that they believe, and especially some of the executives, that this is just a tool rollout. And I compare it always with two examples. You don't become agile by just rolling out Jira, and you don't become a DevOps organization by just using Jenkins. So it's the same thing with AI. The tool will not do the trick. So what will do the trick is that you need to fundamentally change the way how we work. And we try to work with our developers to understand how they currently work and what needs to change. Of course, you also have all of those worrying points where people believe that maybe they are no longer relevant. And we try to explain our developers that they shouldn't be scared of all of the tools. They first of all take away some of the heavy lifting that nobody likes. We split the world into the yay and nay tasks, so it takes away the nay tasks and you have more time for the yay tasks. But also we believe that when you look at a day of a developer, it's very clear that in the future there will be still developers, of course, but what we will do is we will replace developers without using Gen AI with developers that use Gen AI. And that kind of a true belief was something that we made very clear to the organization. So it's not about you will be replaced by AI, but if you don't use AI, you will be replaced by someone that uses AI.
I just need to add, I took a quote from Stanford, very, very similar, that AI will not replace radiologists, but radiologists that lean in and use AI will replace the radiologist that doesn't. So I think it goes for most professions that it's really about making people leaning in and learning and starting adopting.
And the way where you see that this is a kind of a cultural transformation is we have teams that sit on the same floor, that are part of the same team, that work on the same technology stack, and some of the people, but I don't know, on the left-hand side, use Gen AI and are super happy with those tools, and some of them not at all. And that's exactly that kind of cultural transformation, because it's not a question of technology, not a question of understanding how to use it. It's really a cultural transformation that you need to go through.
Do you see, like the end of the year, that the ones that lean in and start using it, do you start to see that they have higher quality work and can have larger volumes?
What we found out is that people actually talking about it and also making others curious is a key thing. So basically you hear your colleague talking about this. This is why we also started to establish this kind of culture of Gen AI hacks, where if somebody has a hack, he talks about it, then other people become curious, and that's the way how you have to infect your organization to be curious, to try stuff out.
Great. I think there are a few things that you touched upon there. Just rolling out a tool isn't enough. And success, you had a viral hit, and now you're building on that success. I think success and sharing those stories, but also going and inspecting things that did not work, not to stop the progress, but actually go and ask ourselves, well, why it did not work, and what am I going to do differently for the next set of experiments so that we can make it work? Really, really important points there. Rocket, you had a framework of A to F, I think. So there was a really good way to think about how you went about that framework. Can you tell our audience what that framework is?
Absolutely. And for me, nearly everything is about first principles. So we're all familiar with the term use case. But I think we over-rotate on the word use. So we're like, what am I going to do with it? And we don't think about the case part. I'm not saying that because I'm a lawyer, but like a case for anything is multiple elements. So we created this A through F framework, which is, well, A, what team wants to use this? B, using what technology? C, using what input data, could be public data, confidential data. D, and what's going to be the output data from that? E, for what audience, and F, for what final objective. And what that granularity has afforded us is we really can enable use cases. So it's about tuning those 6 elements to enable. So it's not you can or cannot, it's just tuning those 6 elements where we feel good that you can go ahead and proceed.
Great. Anna, I want to talk about challenges. What are some of the challenges that you faced? What are the things that did not work, or what are some of the lessons that you would do over?
Well, I would move faster. I wouldn't take it on as a regular IT project where you think you have 12 to 18 months, but really work more iterative. So to understand how can I release it early. And in that, doing some real things like always engage early with legal.
Thank you.
Make sure that you can have the data organized so you can move faster. Of course, we are a biopharmaceutical company of research, so we have a lot of data already organized, but actually make sure that what is the most valuable data and see how you can actually organize it a little bit better. And then also make sure that always, when we didn't prioritize the user cases, it got all spread over. But when we actually went in and really prioritized, it's so much easier because you're focused and you're working on the right problems and you're moving really faster. And I think that really helps you to avoid the mistakes. But we have had many. Research System was the first one we did, and it went viral, and it was a huge success. And then some of the other problems have been more tricky to solve, but some of them been success. It's just keep moving and going in a different angle and moving forward. And it's about the problem. It's not about how you solve it.
Great. Axel, any challenges that you faced, and how did you overcome them?
I think the challenge is always to find a way how to be fast enough on the one hand side, on the other side, then also to not reinvent the wheel 15 times, because in all of the different business units, they more or less work on the same stuff. So it's a very difficult balance to say on the one hand side, we would like to scale. On the other side, we don't want to wait for the super final solution that takes a long, long time to develop. And then maybe even later, somebody else develops something that is better what you have worked on. So timing is really, really crucial. Also, when it comes to the evolving technology, you just don't know which will be the right set of capabilities in the next 6 months, because things will change so quickly. So you have to come up with a kind of a flexible architectural model where you can take pieces out and plug in new pieces without changing your entire setup. And that needs a bit of thinking around, and it's nothing that is very easy to do.
No, and to your point, it will never be perfect because 6 months or 9 months away, there is another solution that could be better, and it's not worth waiting because you need value here. If you can shave those 5 seconds or 5 minutes or 5 hours now, that's worth something.
And I think Matt talked about this earlier in the morning about the building blocks, and Rocket, you mentioned first principles. It's really that aspect when things are moving very fast. It's the ability to actually bring these building blocks and components to be able to stitch them together, swap out as needed, as technology evolves or as your need changes. That actually allows you to move really, really quickly. Rocket, I want to come back to you. you had an interesting way to think about how do you actually bring other stakeholders and think about engaging them. I know we heard a lot about do more with less, but I really loved how you kind of framed how do you actually appeal to other stakeholders, the business units that you're trying to get to partner with you to drive a change in a very large organization. Can you please share that with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're all on a journey, but this journey, from my perspective, started over 20 years ago. It was when I was in the middle of that org book, where heard the words for the first time. We've all heard it. Do more with less. But that was back in the Six Sigma days, when you got a black belt and you figured out how to get inefficiencies out of your company, back office, front office, manufacturing. And industry kind of stayed there for a while, but we as a technical community, we moved on to a phase two, if you will, and we tried to do more with more. This is way before AI. I remember process automation and self-service. We were trying to use compute to bring us that with more, but that wasn't enough with more. And then Gen AI comes along, we're like, I think that's enough with more, but to do what with that? And then I kind of took a step back. Well, I don't think we wanted to do more with less for sure. And although more with more is better than more with less, I think what we're really trying to get at is to do less with more impact. Focus on less things with this Gen AI, focus on giving people time back so that we can achieve more and that we can have more impact. And when people get that perspective as an example, it kind of tunes them into the why, to what use cases would make sense to bring that impact to their enterprise.
Do fewer things better, really like that framework. By the way, a fellow black belt here as well.
Yes.
So I remember those days really well. Excel, can you talk about the model choices? We heard this morning about many of the customers that we work with, and they use Bedrock. We're seeing majority of them actually use more than one model. Yes. Based on the use cases, based on the problem they're trying to solve. How do you think about model choice?
So I believe that being open to using different models is a key success factor. So there will be different models for different use cases. If you have something where you more or less need picture scanning recognition, if you need handwriting recognition, you maybe use a different model. When we look at claims data, you use a different model. So we try to architect in a way that we can change the model without impacting the entire use case. We also try to be as model agnostic as possible. Of course, that's easier said than done, but still for me, a key differentiating factor. The problem is that I think nobody knows which model will be the best one in 1 year. So you have to find a way how you can replace those models. And of course, if you start to scale, then the cost become an important dimension. And we have more or less developed some kind of a possibility where we have some kind of switches where you can choose between what is important for you. Is it latency? Is it cost? Is it accuracy? Is it the latest technology that you use for those? And that gives you the ability to choose.
Great. And those of you who heard Tom talk about this, it's this triangle of accuracy, performance, or speed, and cost. And you're trying to optimize different things based on the use cases. And that actually allows you to choose the right model and do it in a way that is cost effective, but also meets the need for those use cases. I want to talk about scaling and what is next. So each one of you had some success. You're seeing a lot of value. You build these partnerships across different functions inside of your company. How do you go about scaling, and what do you do next from here? Anna, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so I think it's really important to what both my fellow here have been talking about is really thinking about is what do you do in now? So what models are you using, but also plan for the future. So really being able to swap the models as things are maturing. Mm-hmm. But really move fast, but start with the end in mind. So actually really agree, as I described earlier, agree on the problems you're going after. Then start very, very small, but build it. So if you hit something that really solves a big problem and makes a difference, and for us, it's about bringing the medicines to the patients. If you start to make a difference, that you quickly can scale. And my lessons learned from my research assistant is to engage early with legal, thinking about the global blockers that are out there. What need to get one solution into China is very different from getting it into UK or into Sweden or Poland. It's so different to learn about ahead of time and do platform approvals. So when you go to the workforce union, etc., in the different countries, do it for a wider range of solutions, not a niche solution, so you have to come back every time, but prepare for scaling, then move fast. And if it is a success, then scale fast. But also, as we talked before, if it's not a success, fold it down very quickly.
Quickly double down if it's working and cut the bait if it is not. Rocket, any lesson that you can share with our audience? What is one thing that they can do once they go back from the conference here?
In addition to engage legal early, realize who all your users really are. So, so I do a little bit tongue in cheek with call legal early because legal is an accelerant, the way that Anna has said, but that's for a different reason. Because we are a user. And we want those AI use cases to gen AI all the legal stuff that we have to generate. So just realize who all your users are because some of those people may be approvers on one side, but on the other side, they're a user and they want to enable. It'll be amazing for all of your enterprises once you get legal engaged that way. Actually, it's even faster than accelerant because they want the impact to them.
Excel, any lesson to share with our audience?
So I think we move the organizations from, we talk a lot about being digital, from digital by default to AI by default. That's the new mantra. Secondly, to be a bit provocative, from my point of view, the future is now a bit black and white. It's less about those super big use cases that many organizations currently focus on. The problem with those super big use cases and big bets is the following. You have dedicated team to work on a dedicated use case, but the rest of the organization is not properly onboarded. So my vision is more like work on this Gen AI-enabled organization. And if I can choose between 3 big use cases and have a use case that is just $400, one developer did something in 2 days in a small team, and I have this 1,000 times every day, that will be the big impact. So it should feel a bit like using a PowerPoint. That is something that is everybody can do that, or using a spreadsheet. We have to come into a way where 80–90% of the organization uses AI, not just a couple of IT expert teams who work on a very big use case who automatically create the bottleneck. So we have to build this muscle that everybody's duty is to work with AI. And that is, for me, the kind of key transformation that we have to work on.
Great. I think there are a lot of common themes that I heard. You talked about the mission, setting up as to, well, you want to bring the drugs quicker to the patient. I mean, that's an inspiring mission. Rocket, you talked about what is in it for them. You have to not only get your stakeholders to help you with the project, but they are also your customers. They can benefit from this as well. And Axel, I love the point about impactful use cases. It's not just about rolling out anything. It's about something that is truly going to make a difference at scale inside of large companies, so that when you have a viral hit, like you had, Anna, you can actually build upon that success. I really appreciate all of your insight. Thank you so much for sharing your lessons and insight. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you to our panelists, and enjoy the rest of the program.